Hello and welcome to The Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie, and I am so excited for today's guest. Y'all, we are talking about how to align and design our desires and have them honestly come true in our life. You know, there's so much on a biological level that we don't understand about ourselves and the way that we engage with the world. And on The Knowing Show, we talk about the four key intelligences that constitute you and me: the intellectual intelligence, the emotional intelligence, spiritual and physical intelligences. And today we're really looking at two in particular: the physical intelligence and how our biology and body is designed to match and engage with the emotional intelligence and what our emotions tell us. And Michelle, I mean, I think it's actually going to touch into the other intelligences too.
Oh yeah. Okay, you've got to give them to me one more time. I heard emotional and then yes. And you said there's biological.
Yeah, physical intelligence.
Physical, okay.
Mm-hmm. Emotional, intellectual. IQ. And then spiritual intelligence.
And spiritual. Okay, I love this. Yes.
So, guys, I'm really, really excited because I got together with Michelle, Rutkowski. I'm sorry, I didn't say that perfectly. Opal Rutkowski, and we got together. She's a master architect. You can see in the back her logo, More Studios. And we got together and we went for a walk, which I normally actually never do when I first meet somebody. It's like, let's go get coffee or lunch, and we went for a hike. And it was really, really interesting. You know, she shared her story in so many ways. And I told her, I was like, you have to come on the podcast. Like, you have to share what you've been through and what you've experienced. And I know that we're all going to walk away better for this. And it's really about how she has gone through the process of designing her life and matching her desires so that her desires and the very things that propel us, even if we're not awake to them, they subconsciously do. So that's part of the process. It's even awakening to them and designing our life as a result of our desires. So Michelle, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you about this.
I'm so excited. And Michelle, you've been working on your book. You've been kind of perfecting your keynote because this is your mission. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think one of the most important endeavors for the human being is to uncover the reason why you and I are here. And I really do believe each one of us has a different element to uncover or explore or experience in the world that we get to contribute to the culture around us. So why are you here?
Oh, I'm here to show people how to align their desires with a life that truly feeds them and drives them forward by teaching them how reward works in your body biologically. It's speaking to our cells every minute. It's part of every goal we've ever achieved, every business we've ever built, every relationship we've ever sustained is built on a biological reward system that keeps us going back to things over and over again. And when that system gets off track, it looks like addiction. But when it's fed and when you can release from hijacks, the whole system starts to do crazy things. Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm so excited. Keep going.
Yeah. So, 4 years ago, I discovered this from my own unraveling of addiction in my life. And it started with me trying an experiment. I had it. And after trying to reduce my alcohol consumption for a long time, it seemed to just keep getting a bigger and bigger grip of my joy. And then the repercussions was a big swing back to a different state, a non-joyous state in the recovery process. And so what I did was I took naltrexone before drinking via the Sinclair method. The Sinclair method is an FDA-approved use of naltrexone in the reward loop, it turns out. I didn't know any of this was happening because I didn't even know before I found this pill that there was something I could interrupt about what I desired and how desires are even formed in the body biologically. Because I believe that the rest of my life, I owned this desire. I owned the desire for alcohol for the rest of my life. I thought that was given. And that was not the truth. So the truth is that your reward system is designed for good. It was never designed for addictions. It was designed for a remembering of who we are and what we're here for, which is in the service of others. It's also in joy and delight. And so the whole system is a beautiful intentional design that begins with the cues of our environment.
Wow. Okay. So this is awesome. I'm so excited about this.
Yeah.
I especially get excited when it's scientifically backed.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a lot of beautiful concepts that are not grounded in research or grounded in real hard data. And so I really love the data side. Like when I found out about really exploring the right hemisphere of the brain and how emotions aren't a thing to be suppressed, but they're actually biological, I was like, oh wow, like it was like a whole new world opened up. So hearing about this reward system completely, I think that there's it's another layer. It's another world, so to say, of understanding about ourselves. Michelle, I have always, now I want to say this, I'll just be really honest and I want to hear your thoughts. And for those of you in the chat, I'd love to hear your perspective too. I have always struggled when I hear people say, hi, my name's Christine and I'm an addict.
Yes. Yeah, so, I struggle with that too. I'd love to talk about this.
So, because you've been through it. Yes, and you're saying, I am that. I am this. So can you talk to us about that? And how does addiction, like you're talking about the reward system. So I'd actually love, maybe we need to start there.
Yeah.
But when it comes to our identity and saying, I am, it's like I'm stepping into this role.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for a while I held that as a label, right? In order to even seek help right now in today's world, we have to give ourselves a label and seek help. And that leaves a lot of people away from the truth that there is medical interventions for this trouble. And when we really unlock how naltrexone works in the receptors that it protects, we start to understand that those receptors were there all along, with or without the alcohol. The alcohol was doing something to that receptor that told it something, but the identity of being an addictable person, the reward system is a human condition. It is not a condition. The reward system doesn't belong to addicts and non-addicts. We all have a reward system. And because of our life experiences, there's different aspects of reward that get down-regulated over time via chronic stress or over-agonization. So that means when you agonize, means basically you override the receptor over and over again. It down-regulates, it desensitizes. So there's things about the modern life that don't care for this receptor, but we can take back the blueprints. There is, once you know how it works, which you're going to know after today. So yeah, it's very cool.
Okay. So cool. Keep going.
Yeah. So I want to tell you about how it works because it's really helpful so that you know where naltrexone fits into the reward loop, and you'll learn about the reward loop today. So I'm going to talk about cues first, and I have a little prop, which is in this box. So just thinking about reward, when you think about, this is my little ASMR idea, but when you think about reward and thinking about getting a gift, you imagine something that's inside of it. And if you consistently got beautiful gifts from a yellow box like this, and it was always your favorite treat, if you saw this yellow box across the way in Target, your body would naturally pull yourself towards it because what was inside the box, you remember as being something wonderful, right? You had an experience inside from within the box. And so gifts that are wrapped beautifully are a cue. They're a CUE in our environment, and they pull us towards something. That's how you can picture a cue. And cue sparks dopamine that tells us to what to move towards. And then when you arrive at the reward, so when you move towards the gift and you make some effort and you pick up the gift from the table and you open it up, you experience something always when you arrive at the gift, right? So imagine inside this gift is a piece of chocolate, and I take it out and I put it on my tongue, and I let it melt in my mouth. And there's a sense of reward that happens there. That is the gift we're all seeking. And that is actually endorphin and opioid receptor mediated. It's not just dopamine mediated. And so what happens is your opioid receptors, your MORs, which happen to share my initials, your MORs receive endogenous morphine, fits like a glove it fits actually like a key into a lock. So your endogenous morphine fits into there. And then your MORs tell your brain what to filter for next time. So if I receive something in this box all the time that's really good, every time I see a box like this, which is pretty unique, I would always find it in my environment. So
Right.
what we try to do often with how we change our habits is we start at the cues of our environment. We say, well, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to stop drinking, or I'm just going to stop doing this. But what we don't understand is that the brain is already filtering. Your reticular activating system is filtering for those cues in your environment because of what your opioid receptor system remembers as what's being input. So if that makes sense, what it does is naltrexone puts a little stop on your opioid receptor so the reward doesn't land. It's actually synthesized from the same plant that morphine is. And so what's amazing about the receptor and the opioid receptor is that it doesn't even stop at the animal kingdom. The design of the receptor extends into the plant kingdom because the poppy itself has molecules that fit perfectly into the receptors on our cells.
What?
That's unbelievable kingdom architecture, right? Like, to tell me that there's no intentionality of that design is profound. But those same exact molecules that we synthesized and turned into morphine, which built the opioid disaster of the human history, when we synthesized the actual reward, it overrode the receptor so much that the repercussions were extremely deadly. 25,000 doctors were prosecuted in the early 1900s because of how much they were prescribing this. 5,000 went to jail because of how much they were prescribing opioids. It was so incredibly deadly. And we haven't recovered. The medical system has put basically a no access symbol on opioid science. And what I'm telling everyone is that we really need to look at this as a system of thriving, not just of addiction, but what happens if we take out all of the synthetic overrides of the system? How do we actually take the system back, the blueprints back, so we know what's calling us forward? Because so much of the modern world is designed to override our biology and feed us novelty at the pace of a scroll. And long form video, especially anything beyond 2 minutes, is starting to feel like a chore, right, for some people. And we have to understand that that's because of how quickly we can get novelty. What is our biology designed to receive? And so, yeah, our cue, movement, reward, memory loop is a very important part of understanding how things that we keep doing get installed in memory so that they constantly pull us back to it. And that system is changeable is amazing. So I can tell you how it happened in my body and what it felt like to me, because I know a lot of people think about that if they're ever going to try something like this. And I'm not a doctor, I'm an architect. This is my personal experience. So, but I've studied the receptor and I've become fascinated with it, from the architecture of it to the design of it down to the cellular, the bridge between the outside and inside world. It literally is the bridge between your emotions and your biology. It tells you you can change your emotions by what you tell yourself, by deep breath work, by awe and gratitude, and the things that we can do can actually reset your reward system and start having your system primed for good again. And so we really need to understand where endorphins come from, so we can start feeding the system intentionally endorphins from the sources that are natural instead of overrides.
Okay, so this is huge. So effectively, I want to try to repeat this back to you, Michelle, in a way that is probably way oversimplified, because what you're sharing, and again, I love that this is backed by science, because it takes, again, this kind of concept of something that I think we're all a little bit afraid of. You know, to your point, we hear opioid, we just are so terrified.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, opioid, obviously that's addiction. And we just have this almost like word association. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I'm curious if I'm going to repeat this back to you well. So we've got our endorphins, the opioid, It's what receptors?
The mu, which is mu, so it's the mu opioid receptors. We have several different receptors, and they're literally shortened in the literature to MOR. And so we have MORs and CORs and DORs and NOP receptors. They have different receptors, and MORs receive endorphins. Yep.
MORs receive endorphins. Okay. So it's funny, like the acronym sounds just like the mu. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So and it's your.
I know, it's so weird. That is the weirdest part. That's why I was like, yeah, this is
your
my passion.
So we've got our endorphins that effectively are like describe that in relation to the opioids, because I want to make sure that I better understand.
Yeah.
Okay, so the mu opioid receptors receive endorphins, but what's the real definition of endorphins in that regard? Because I know, but then what's dopamine? You know.
So endorphins are unbelievable because single-celled organisms in petri dishes that have opioid receptors, if there are endorphins, little endorphin pockets in the liquid, they will move towards the endorphins. So it's a natural reaction or a miracle, literally. It is a miracle. I can't imagine at the scale that this is happening, because we're talking about every one of our cells has hundreds of thousands of receptors on it. So we are talking about the tiniest little scale, and this isn't just our brain. It's not like it's happening just in our brain. Our skin has opioid receptors. Every tissue in our body is listening to the endorphins that we're feeding it. And endorphins are a signal of safety. And I've heard you talk about this before, about how safety feels in your body and how emotions feel. And that's incredibly important for our cells to hear that sense of safety, so they know that they can open up and they can heal. And this system of that is hijacked in alcohol use disorder, which is the opioid receptor system, that system is responsible for so many other things that we haven't even given it credit for yet, as a medical industry, as an industry in general, because everyone has turned their back on this system. I've seen it. It's interesting how that happens. But there are a lot of people that have used the Sinclair method. I'm just going to show you some of my books, but there are some books out there called, this one is The Cure for Alcoholism, and other people have talked about this in different ways. I'm definitely not the first one to talk about it, but I think about it a little bit differently, because I understand that this is not just a system of addiction, it's a system for thriving. And if we can start to harness it for our good, we can really teach our body what to start wanting. I'm curious if anyone in your audience ever thinks about these things, and what you in your life.
I just had a thought. It's funny. Growing up, and tell me how you think about this. I guess kind of connection. So we talked at the very beginning on the Knowing Show. We talk about intellectual intelligence, emotional, physical, and spiritual intelligence. For so long, the emotional intelligence, it was damned and mocked and viewed as something to be like, emotions were a sign of weakness, rather than viewing emotions as there's data there. It's the right hemisphere of your brain. That's so often, and it's actually really necessary for creativity and just art and kind of that whole aspect of your body and form of creation. And now there's more science coming up and more research being done, and there's more regard and honor being given to emotion, and even understanding cortisol and how that spikes our stress levels and how to kind of calm yourself down. It's becoming a little bit more mainstream. And whenever something becomes mainstream, usually it's because people stopped having so much fear around it. It's just becoming more understandable. Like, all of us are conditioned to look for certainty and to remain in certainty. And so whenever something that is uncertain is introduced, our body actually can tend to go more so into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. If anything is uncertain, even if it's a new concept, where our brain has not been introduced to it. And so our body, we have a lack of safety associated with something new. And so I'm curious, this whole conversation around our opioid receptors, our mu opioid receptors. And whenever we hear that word, we think of addiction, we just have this correlation. So for so many of us, emotions are weakness. emotions are feminine. You know, we have this word association, and I think we have that here. And so what you're effectively doing is writing what's wrong there and bringing clinically backed data that says, hey, actually, there's so much more here. Yes, you've seen the negative ramifications of addiction. But my gosh, it's like with the great shadow is the great light. And that is how the world works. So it's almost safe to assume something that's so damaging and has the propensity to be deadly shouldn't then also yield great reward.
Oh, I love this. Yes, the contrast of this. I had been, when I started researching the system and writing the book and understanding that the poppy gave us both molecules. The poppy was what gave us the molecule that it was first originally used in the fields to just calm a worker's nerves, right? It was put into like a little tea, and it was a gift, right? And help people get through the day, the opium poppy. And then it started getting marketed and synthesized and all of the other things that happened to it. So yeah, it's fascinating that could do so much damage, but it really was teaching us a lesson that there is something inside our bodies that receives something else that can get that addicted to something to begin with is a profound story of how we're designed. We should have been looking at the addiction epidemic as something to really pay attention to, because when we take addiction out of the situation, we say, okay, there are people, we can breed mice, right, to be more susceptible to addiction than other mice, which means it's biological. We've known that for a while, but we put so much shame around this system that we've told people it's moral. And so I thought that I had something wrong with my willpower. I had my willpower intact for other things. I could show up in my life, but I couldn't figure this thing out. And it was like, what is wrong with me? And how could I be so separate from grace? But it wasn't that at all. It was that my system was literally biologically overridden to have a single source, and it needed some support, which is, I'm so grateful that the world gives us these clues to say, oh my gosh, in the plant, the poppy plant is a solution. It's from the same poppy, but it fits into the lock without turning it, which means it protects it temporarily. It gives a 6 to 8 hour window for you to experience the cue. You have to drink while you're taking it. And then it rewrites addiction right there at the source of reward before it gets installed into your memory. So yeah, that's the part that's just unbelievable about the design of reward, and that humans could figure this out to begin with. Gosh, the story of that is crazy too.
So wild.
Yeah, I know.
It's so fascinating. You know, I've thought of this, and I don't know. I know that there's so many different perspectives on God. I'll say that. Yeah. There's this biblical text where it says God made every plant useful and good. And there's something to that where I'm like, man, how much of our medicine and even what can heal us is to be found literally in nature. And so I love that. And there's been a lot, Michelle, over the last 50, 60 years, discoveries that have been found, but that haven't really been given the honor and credence because it takes the place of big pharma. And so it's an interesting exploration of like truly natural remedies of like, like take this and it'll make you feel better.
Exactly. And I think what was interesting is that I started this journey. My dad's a physician. So I came to this with the Western medicine thought process. I was like, well, if there's a cure for alcoholism and it comes in a bottle, like, honestly, I was all in for the shortcut. That was my first goal. I was like, yes, please. I've been struggling for so long. Give me a shortcut. So there was I want to make sure that people understand that this was the easy way out of addiction. And it's pharmacological, but it's also a generic pill. And so the reason why big pharma you're not seeing it is because there's nobody to profit for it. What's fascinating is the people that came, the University of Penn scientists who first got this fast tracked through the FDA in the 90s. They basically put it out there as a generic pill, as an act of goodwill, right? To say, oh, we want everyone to have this. You can rewrite addiction. But what happened was, because of that generic status, it got stuck behind what's currently pressing our science is profit. And so, yeah, it's a crazy system to understand and try to get into, because when I want to solve this, I want to solve it and have the FDA look again at naltrexone and make sure our doctors know how to prescribe it via the Sinclair method from this book. And so that we can update the science to the current standards, and there's no one speaking out loud to advocate for that. It takes millions of dollars to run, large scale clinical trials. And so, there's plans in the works for me to help get that and advocate on the behalf of all the people who need to know that there's a solution out there that is less than $1 a pill, because it's generic, by the way. So
I love that.
It's ridiculous that there's not more people trying it sooner in their addiction, because I lost 2 decades to something that I did not need to and I could have known this if people were able to take the shame and the moral understanding of addiction out of the story, which is my goal. Yeah.
Gosh, I'd really love to hear, Michelle. We talked about this briefly, the association with identity around addiction. And so I'd love to hear, like, in one sense, you're saying it's as simple as, there's literally this pill that saved my life. It changed my life.
Yeah.
Okay, this is kind of crazy. So kind of, are you saying, I hear so many people, we talked about Joe Dispenza before, Dr. Joe Dispenza, they've got a lot of research around how people have really, like, they'll hook up, the brain scans during their retreats. And for those of you who don't know, actually, do you mind introducing Dr. Joe?
Yeah, so my understanding of what he's doing is probably using this system, the mu opioid receptor system, and some other systems that he's studying for heart-brain coherence, to do some localized work in the body around this. The placebo effect is what essentially he talks about in his studying, but he does deep breathwork meditation to get people into a space of accepting the healing benefit of what I would refer to, I guess, as the Holy Spirit, and how I think about that. So there's interesting ways about how people are looking at this. There's also a biological mechanism, because how I think about this is that we are, inhabiting meat suits, essentially, right? That we are souls inside of meat suits that we have to understand, but we're not just those things. Like we identify so much with our bodies as if that's the end of the story, but there's so much beyond that. It still means, though, that we have this free will and a reward system, because really we're driven by reward. We're driven by this desire to move forward. So how do we know and create purpose? Because purpose ultimately does help us keep moving forward in life. How do we find that purpose? Because without purpose, then the body looks for quick relief, and there is that identity that you have to change. You have to go, okay, well, I'm not that person anymore, and what else am I going to fill my bucket with? I mean, I think when you can release from like that addict mentality, if anything, you have more sensitive opioid receptors if you have this problem, which means that when you're healed, you will also be able to move forward and fall in love with new things and be addicted to them. So you have this hope in renewal when you say, okay, I'm going to stop that reward. And it was a gentle unraveling for me over the course of 2 years. It wasn't like it happened overnight. It was like, okay, well, wow, I'm not doing that anymore. And you can watch people who do the Sinclair method over time, they use less and less and less. So the other thing is, it's a pill that works itself out of the job. So that's the other problem. Like, a lot of pills are designed to be taken long term. This is designed to be taken and then get out of your system. So and then you can take back your life without any pills on board, which was a crazy understanding of reward. And I just think people can then, understand that their biology can be hijacked in this modern world, but it can also get right back on track. And that connection. So I wasn't able to meditate deeply in my addiction. I was never able to meditate. And after this healing process, I would reach for that sensation of falling into safety. And I understand very clearly that that is an endorphin release that I'm looking for when I'm falling into meditation. And it's the feeling of being comforted and held by somebody you love, right? It's the feeling of being held by God. And so that sensation is something we are all designed to get. When you look at the receptors themselves at the cellular level, there's certain receptors that are asking for stillness, for non-sleep, deep rest. And so it's scientific. It's also spiritual. What's written in the scriptures is articulated in the biology, which I find to be beautiful. Yeah. Like be still and know means something. It means something to our receptors. And when we fall into that stillness, it does something good to our bodies every time. So it's how I reset now. I didn't know I needed that before I went through this process, but absolutely it's part of how I move forward and how I stay, excited about what I'm doing in the world.
I love this. I have this isn't a question, but it's a comment from the chat, and I would just want to hear your thoughts on ibogaine.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is there's a lot of interesting recoupling of our reward architecture through DMT experiences, which I believe are part of the ibogaine experience, if I'm getting this right. So yeah, when you look at that molecule now, I haven't studied that, but I have a lot, because I talk about this a lot. I hear this from a lot of people, their experiences, and I follow some of the science and how people have come out of those experiences with either connections to information that there was no possible way that they could have found, or that they had healing from addiction in those experiences as well. I've heard that from people's mouths that I completely believe them. So there's some profound things that are happening with other molecules, and we need to look outside of pharma and go, what else what is the plant kingdom telling us? Because you understand we're all on this planet together. So we all came from the same concepts. and what's beautiful about the concept of humans is that we're designed for oxytocin and endorphin coupling. That's the strongest desire that we have. And that comes in all different forms. It's not just the Darwinian principles of hedonic sexual desire or anything like that. There is a lot more to it than that. It's amazing how many times oxytocin will signal just from finding meaning or uncovering a new idea. And I'm sure there's a lot more going on that we can even begin to imagine. We're so amazingly designed. Mm-hmm.
I love that you just said that. We're so amazingly designed. I think there's so many avenues that even just that concept, are we amazingly designed, opens up for conversation. I think, Michelle, there's been so much shame around our physical bodies as well as just ourselves. Like so much shame when we're kids, being picked on about how we look, that just looks alone, or our voice. I've gotten told so many horrible things about how I look being here on the show, and then also when I was a kid. And so it's like, okay, we've got a lot of shame that we're contending with. So the thought that I'm wonderfully designed to then propel me to go and heal parts of my brain, parts of just the heart, it's bringing into coherence the mind and heart. And it's like, am I worthy?
Yeah, am I worthy? That's interesting. Yeah, and I think that may keep people, because the shame of the system, they feel like they're unworthy to seek the help, or that they can do it on their own. And the shame is what keeps so many people stuck behind that shame of not coming out and saying, no, this is who I am. But there are certain stories, like I knew when I was going to tell this story, I had to get up here and talk about it, like say, okay, no, that was a problem with me. I looked fine on the outside. I was a professional, whatever, but there was a lot that I was hiding that was really destroying my energy, right? And so I had to get over the shame in order to be able to tell people, hey, no, I know what that feels like. Like I know what it feels like to wake up hungover like every day of my life and wish that I could take it back every single day. And so, yeah, it's not a fun place to be. And I'm so glad I'm not there anymore. I had a desire. I wrote it in my journal, January of 2020. I had a desire to change. And I said, I want a year of bright mornings and full energy and all of this. And it took me 15 months to find the Sinclair method when I heard about it on a podcast for the first time, before I actually could reduce my alcohol consumption. But I had a desire that morning and I wrote it down and I started looking for it. I started listening to podcasts or trying to get books or whatever. And I was failing left and right. I put away my drink charts. I tore them off the back of my cabinets. And I was like, I guess I'm just going to die from this because it was so hard for me. And I know everybody's going to say, well, why didn't you just quit? It's like the craziest thing to tell somebody that's in that loop, as if that was that easy. It's just insane. And so knowing that I had this helper that I could put on, it felt like I was wearing a cape that said, okay, no, I can go to this happy hour, because it was all around me at the time. The industries and my time at home, and COVID got us at home, but it didn't help that at all. I thought I was going to have more time to quit and like, oh, it was going to be easier, but that didn't work. So yeah, there was so many things about that experience that opened up my eyes to how the system actually works. And yeah, feeling the cravings subside over time was just unbelievable.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's just so cool, Michelle. It's just so encouraging that there's hope, Somebody, a friend of the Knowing Show just commented here. You said, schizophrenia to depression can be modulated out with, plant medicine, psychedelic therapies. Like, there's a way to heal. We're not broken,
No. Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think a lot of people are stuck outside of knowing those resources, but it takes community. It takes community to be like, I'm going to show up. I'm actually going to talk about it, because I was starting you start to tell your friends when something nice happens to you and you're like, okay, well, maybe somebody else needs this. And it is a challenge to go from person to person and be like, okay, no, this might help you, or maybe it could. But when we show up in community and we start talking out loud about the things that are helping us, then there's going to be a spread of that. And it will be a groundswell of agency that comes up from people, and they're going to start asking for these things, and they're going to go, well, what is the better solution? And and I think that the medical profession, I'm so highly respectful of them, and science is so incredibly important. So large-scale clinical trials are huge. We have to have the data. The physicians need to have the data so that they can get the prescriptions and feel confident about them. I still am very much inclined to establish our medical professionals with what they need. And I think if we can somehow get everybody on the same page, at least with the pharmacological solutions that we know about that are working, and that are safe and have 40 years of safety behind them, let's start there. But I think they're really stepping up. I mean, we're doing large-scale clinical trials for plant medicine left and right. We're doing large-scale clinical trials for low-dose naltrexone as it relates to long COVID right now. 1,300 patients are going through that trial. So there are, naltrexone is synthesized from a plant. So, it does speak the same language as our receptors. And I think that's where we're headed, is more intelligence around how our bodies work. And all medicine is very fascinating in what it does. And but there's so many people that are prescribing medicines that are far less effective than naltrexone. And naltrexone is used to reduce something that's we're losing people by the millions per year. So, it's not a small problem. We have 300 people per hour. So in the course of this show, it's like 2 massive planes have crashed that have lost the lives of people with AUD without knowing they had a solution. I mean, this is prescribed less than 2% of people with AUD even get a medical prescription. So, and it's 78% effective in the clinical trials that have been run. So it's just not acceptable how we sit with this with this science. It's available. The science is available. It's not like it's debated. It's not that. It's just that it hasn't been packaged in a way and put up to the plate and said, well, who's going to back it? I don't know. Who's got $2 million sitting around that can put it on this bet? But yeah, I've got some brewing ways that I'm planning on enlightening the world on this, and telling the story and funding the trial if I have to. There's something that's going to happen behind this that won't be small.
I cannot believe I didn't think of an introduction. I have an introduction for you.
Okay, wonderful.
That could very well do this. Wow, I can't believe this is why we do what we do. That's why we talk.
Yeah, I know, because you have to say your dreams out loud. If you don't have, like, you have to be able to go, no, that's where I'm headed. I won't stop until it's done. If it's done, then I still will talk about it, because you know what? I'm just so incredibly grateful for the shame I was able to get completely out of my body and brain, and to take back my life and really build a life of my own desires. Now I get to go, okay, where in my life do I want to inject endorphins? And then my dopamine's going to want to call me back there. So I get to invest my endorphins now, instead of just letting them fall arbitrarily like around, so yeah, everybody gets a chance to do that. Wherever you are, you can invest your endorphins in the right investments into our family. And the other thing that's crazy about the system is fantasy and desire, and how it's built as a vision before our desire happens, because our body cannot tell the difference between an imagined and a real event. And I'm sure you've heard about this in this understanding, but our brain doesn't know the difference. It looks the same on in every way. So when we can control our fantasies and really start to direct our fantasies by doing some real thankful, emotive visioning is what I call it, or rendering, because I'm thinking of it as an architect does. It's like how you're going to feel walking through that space is the way to really envision something. And you ask for it as if you've received it, right? That's how it's written. And so when you do that, that's a feeling, that's a sensation, that's an emotion you feel in your body. And so as I write the book, I even use this method to keep me drawn forward. But what is it going to feel like landing in the hands of the people? How is it going to feel like for them to see it and open the pages and understand what it feels like to be free of shame, and what is it going to feel like to hand it to a friend? All of those things get to pull us forward. And so, yeah, we can build this into the projects that we're building, the businesses that we're building. If we want to have relationships that keep us coming back, I mean, if you want to stick with your darling for the next 30 years, you have to build renderings around where you're headed as a couple and as a family, and build this future that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get to the beach of Greece and just laugh on the beach with my hubby, and all these things. There's things that you can do to get your body moving in the right direction, because your reward system doesn't lie. So whatever you feed it, it's going to keep coming back to it. So our fantasies are something that feel, I think, to a lot of people like out of control. I talked to somebody, I was at the Phoenix Open, and just having a little fun. And of course, I'm not drinking this year. And so it was fun to hear everybody talk and whatever. And there's another person not drinking there too. And I was talking about this idea of fantasy. And I said, well, and this person that I was talking to was Mormon. And I said, well, you have fantasy. What your fantasy is working for you, because your family, you prayerfully think about your family in heaven and how you're going to be together forever in heaven. And he said, oh, I thought my fantasies lived outside of my family. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's so true that people think they get to have this fantasy life outside of where they're headed, and it's going to keep them scot-free. But that's not true at all. If you build your fantasies outside of where you're headed, your body will start to pull you in that direction. And so, yeah, it was just a very interesting moment when I heard that being said, because it does help you understand that fantasies and renderings is what I'm talking about here, is that we have to have control of our mind and our bodies, and treat it correctly, protect it, and feed it really good visions of where you're headed.
Yes, I I love that you called it renderings. Just
Yeah.
yesterday, we were chatting with Henry Sims. His father was Steve Sims, who was the concierge for like Elton John and Paris Hilton, just like one of the concierge to the stars.
Oh,
And
wow.
he was a man who was bigger than life, and he passed away last year from cancer very suddenly.
Yeah.
And so he was a good friend, and his son Henry was on the show yesterday, and he talked about that very thing, about how his dad encouraged him to write out not just your vision for your life, not just your dreams and goals and something in the future, but what is your ideal day? And then how can you match today and tomorrow and the day after that to incorporate that ideal day? Like, we don't have to wait.
Yes, you don't. And in fact, your body needs you to start enjoying your life. Like, I can't heal. I'm not healthy. Everything in my life is, I understand now that joy, the waiting for your joy is it's the opposite of health. And so to treat joy as a metabolic condition, I say this, the desire is a metabolic condition. It's not something you can avoid or fight. It is something you have to experience, but we have to be very careful, not careful, but intentional, very intentional with this system. And when you do that, it's like, whoa, because I will tell you, there's been some very interesting things that have happened along the way when I started using this system, the way I see it being designed. So looking at the science, understanding it, because I first went into this like a little hesitant to go there. I was like, do I trust this? Like, am I allowed to fall into meditation? This all felt a little odd, but I really wanted to see, like, what is the biology saying? What are these things that got me so off track? Like, I was on my way to death. I knew that was where I was headed. I could not imagine life without it. And so how this system changed, like, I just needed to know. So I had to keep looking and looking until I understood it and could talk about it out loud.
Michelle, I am so grateful for you. You've had a lot of meaningful shout outs here in the chat, and people have asked if you could come back. So
wonderful.
I'd love to have you come back on here. You know, this is one of the first times that you've really shared.
Yeah, it really is. And trying to get it out there in a way that's clear is very important to me. Thank you for giving me the platform to say it and for being such a receptive person. I just know when I meet somebody like you that I told you this when we first met, I was like, I know this conversation is going to be good because I can sense that we're on the same page about so many of these things and that we're going to learn from each other along the way. And every time I sit down and talk to somebody about this, I come out with a new way of saying it that makes me think differently because everybody experiences this differently. So yeah, I'm really grateful. Thank you. Thank you.
Michelle, I would love to have you come back and talk specifically about once you're on the other side of addiction, who are you? Because we do put our identity in that. And then when you kind of decide, I'm going to change my life, well, then what now? Who am I? Who am I going to be? And so I'd like to really talk about almost the other side of addiction. This is kind of like part one. Okay, if you're in addiction, what does that even mean? Let's actually get the facts straight on, you know, I told you in the green room before we went live, like, let's start with definitions. Well, perhaps the very definition of addiction is fundamentally wrong because we have associated identity with addiction.
Yes.
Yes. Be entirely dismantled. So I'm so grateful for you. Let's sidebar. We'll stay on and figure out another time for you to come back. But so grateful. Thank you so much. How can people follow along in your?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is More Studio, and I'm going to be launching a newsletter soon. It filters out the science of this. You can stay up to date with how to train your own dopamine blueprint, and you'll follow along with the excerpts from the book as it's coming along. So in July, we've got a lot of things launching. So if you follow along at morestudio.net is where we are right now, and mydopamineblueprint.com. I have some updates coming to those websites very soon, and you'll be able to follow me at Michelle Rutkowski on YouTube as well. You can listen to 2 of my talks, Designing for Dopamine, that I did last summer, if anybody's more interested in the science and how our environments are designed around reward and the nervous system. Yeah.
I'm so thrilled. I feel so honored, Michelle. I mean, what you're doing is so important. You said 300 people are dying every hour.
Yeah.
And not even, they're all being, the deaths aren't even being 100% correctly attributed. So it's probably more.
Absolutely. No,
By
that's just the tip of the iceberg. It really is.
It's like a plane crash, you said, like an entire plane came down in just this hour while we've been talking.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So yeah, there really needs to be a lot more people saying this, trying it, seeing how it felt for me, just like it did for them, having the tools they need, having the support they need. I will, I'm going to do whatever I can to give people the support they need. And I'll hopefully have some guides that will get you to understand your reward system a little bit better so that you can do that. But for now, I have all my resources. If you want to try the Sinclair method, I want to be sure that you understand that there are very easy to find options online through the C3 Foundation. They have a list of doctors, and then through Or Health even. So look up the Sinclair method, and my local doctor in Scottsdale at Explore Health MD, she also will do remote visits. So you can have prescription by next week, and you can start trying it, which is drinking while on the pill and just taking the pill 45 minutes to an hour before you drink, and watch your reward system unravel before your eyes, like it did for me. I'm not selling any drugs, of course, because that's all on your physician. They monitor you through all of that, but it's so low friction now. There's a lot of people that are doing this, so very easy to find. I just want to make sure that you do have options if you do want to find the Sinclair method and you really want to try it out, or you have somebody that wants to try it out.
Love it.
Yep.
So grateful for you. Y'all go follow Michelle.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Y'all, we'll see you tomorrow on The Knowing Show.